By the 9th century BCE, the Phoenician trade network operated as a highly pressurized kinetic system. Fleets of merchant vessels cut aggressive paths across the Mediterranean, maintaining a synchronized supply chain that moved mass quantities of Lebanese cedar, Spanish silver, and prized purple dye through a single maritime corridor. At the center of this immense commercial web sat its most lucrative and vital node, the city of Tyre. That Tyre's position was a geographic trap. As we can see on this topographical map of the Levantine coast, the city was built on an isolated island, completely severed from the Asian landmass. That isolation provided a defensive moat, but it carried a strict thermodynamic cost. Tyre could not feed itself. The island's freshwater aquifers and agricultural supplies were entirely tethered to continuous imports flowing in from the mainland. This created a massive structural liability for an otherwise unassailable maritime power. A shipping cartel cannot maintain systemic stability if its central hub requires daily infusions of calories and water from a territory it does not militarily control. That lack of control became a critical failure point with the expansion of the Assyrian military machine. Ancient land-based empires possessed one distinct operational advantage over sea powers: the sheer demographic mass and staying power to execute prolonged, static sieges. Looking at these period reliefs, the coordination of Assyrian infantry tactics is clear. Rows of heavy shield-bearers and archers operated as a formalized, creeping kinetic mass. Faced with an island fortress, Assyrian commanders recognized a basic tactical asymmetry. They did not need to build a navy to defeat Tyre. They only needed to capture the adjacent coastline and sever the city's supply lines. Cut off from those mainland agricultural tethers, any island population faces the mathematical certainty of starvation. To ensure the survival of their commercial network, the Phoenician elite realized they had to completely eliminate this geographic single point of failure before a localized siege triggered a total system collapse. Their solution was the Offshore Protocol, a calculated, state-level capital flight executed by the Tyrian mercantile oligarchy. This operation required moving the state's core operating data. Priestly lineages, technical blueprints, and royal administrative archives were systematically extracted from the Levant. Following the data was the cartel's liquidity, the hard financial reserves, and heavy physical assets. We can see the physical reality of this wealth transfer in standardized bulk trade goods, like these heavy rectangular metal ingots. Lifting a state's entire economic infrastructure and relocating it across open water demanded specialized maritime engineering. The solution lay in heavy, wide-hulled transport vessels, explicitly designed for maximum cargo capacity and deep water stability. Using modular shipbuilding techniques and interchangeable components, Tyrian shipwrights rapidly deployed a massive, synchronized transport fleet. The scale of this industrialization is evident even in their mooring equipment, utilizing standardized stone anchor weights across hundreds of vessels. Coordinating this migration meant securely routing elite personnel, hard currency, and administrative data across the Mediterranean simultaneously. The Tyrian mercantile oligarchy had successfully executed a state-level data center migration, transplanting their entire industrial and financial core to the Western Mediterranean. The search parameters for the new primary node were strict. It had to be geographically isolated, highly defensible, and entirely decoupled from Near Eastern land routes. This map shows the network shifting westward. In 814 BCE, the Tyrians established Carthage in North Africa. Zooming into the peninsula, the geographic logic is clear. It possessed a deep harbor and secure access to a massive agricultural hinterland, resolving Tyre's thermodynamic trap. This aerial fisheye view of a coastal city peninsula demonstrates how water inherently creates a natural, highly defensible perimeter. Because the site was selected for its immediate utility, the new arrivals rapidly deployed architectural infrastructure to stand up a functioning commercial hub. Temporary wooden docks were quickly replaced by permanent industrialized stone facilities. The physical footprint of this rapid deployment survives today in the heavy stone foundations that line the Carthaginian coast. By securing geographic decentralization on a self-sustaining peninsula, the Phoenician cartel neutralized the threat of land-based empires entirely. The ultimate architectural manifestation of this paranoid offshore security protocol was a structure known as the Cothon. Located inland from the commercial docks, the Cothon was an entirely artificial, concealed circular harbor dedicated strictly to military operations. Looking at this orthographic blueprint, we can strip away the water to reveal the staggering engineering involved. The harbor was manually carved out of solid rock and earth, with individual dry docks cut directly into the perimeter. Those radial docks provided enough capacity to house, repair, and completely hide 220 massive warships simultaneously. Directly in the center of the circular harbor sat the command island. From this single elevated point, an admiral possessed unobstructed lines of sight to oversee the entire concealed fleet. The Cothon functioned as an industrialized offshore staging ground, engineered specifically to monopolize violence and secure the Mediterranean trade lanes. In practice, the Cothon functioned as a maritime kill switch for the Phoenician network. Hidden inland, Carthage could surge a massive, heavily armed fleet out of a narrow harbor entrance into the sea with zero advance warning. This projection map illustrates the resulting zone of control. Kinetic vectors snapped across the water, allowing Carthage to lock down the coastlines of Sicily, Sardinia, and Spain. This network architecture meant Carthaginian forces could choke off competing trade lanes at will, while remaining completely invisible to land-based reconnaissance. The contrast with their origins was absolute. Tyre had been paralyzed by a fatal geographic trap, forced to wait for mainland armies to arrive. Carthage, built on enduring structural mass and isolated by the sea, possessed impenetrable, decentralized security. When Tyre eventually succumbed to kinetic land empires in the east, the Phoenician system did not collapse. The architects had already switched servers, evolving their network into an unassailable Mediterranean superpower.